This is the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live, where we offer the news, information, traffic, weather, sports, and entertainment our commercial drivers want and need. I'm your host, Shelley Johnson. Music is some of the entertainment we love to feature, and one entertainer in particular is a favorite among drivers. Country musician Pat Garrett is one of the best voices in country music today, with 7 albums to his credit. Pat has shared the stage with George Jones, Willie Nelson, Loretta Lynn, Johnny Cash, Charlie Daniels, Tanya Tucker, and many other great country artists. His rich baritone voice is perfectly showcased in his original gospel song, The Gates of Heaven. Pat's not one to shy away from a rousing debate and incorporates different themes into his music. A prime example was his release, I'm Gonna Stand. That song is a tribute to the American flag and the national anthem. It got Pat national appearances on Fox and Friends and One America News. Pat has made a significant impact in more than one musical genre. Another example is a rock album recorded under the name Pat Farrell and the Believers. The album included the song Bad Woman, which was covered and recorded by acclaimed British rockers, the Arctic Monkeys. Pat is a Harley-riding cowboy who's also a hit with bikers. Wild Hog is a full-out, rollicking stomp that became a top 20 download. It received over 250,000 hits on YouTube. Pat also threw his cowboy hat into the political ring with his upbeat single, Moose Shootin' Mama. That's a tribute to former vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin. It was one of the most talked about songs of the 2008 political season and led to coverage on major news outlets, Fox and ABC. It was on the Billboard Hot 100 country charts. Pat's on the show with me today, and I'm excited. Welcome, Pat.
Hey, Shelley, how you doing?
Very good. How are you?
And hi to all the truckers out there, too.
They're going to love hearing some of your music and hearing what you've been up to. So we're really glad you're on the show. I was wondering if we could start with you telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got started.
Well, I was in high school, and a friend of mine went up and imitated an Elvis Presley song. He sang to the tracks, and that made me sink down in my seat, and I thought to myself, I got to learn to do this. So when I was, that happened in 10th grade, and when I was in 11th grade, I ended up learning to play the guitar, and my music teacher accompanied me on a big upright bass. And we went out to the assembly, and I played, it was Lonesome Town, which was a kind of slow ballad by Willie Nelson, if you remember that one. And when I was done, we got a tremendous response. The kids were standing up and clapping. And then I did an Elvis Presley song called That's All Right, Mama. And we did that one, and I can still see my old music teacher back there slapping that bass, and I'm bang, dang, ding, 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 dang, dang, ding, ding, you know. And when we did that, some of the kids stood on the chairs and were howling. Well, that ruined me for life. I've been looking for that response ever since.
Oh, I bet. What a rush.
We did get it when we performed the song I did for the national anthem. You know, when the football players were taking the knee, somebody said, you ought to write a song about this. I said, I will, and I'm going to stand. So we did that and put it on Facebook with me singing in my sheepskin shop. And this thing, I put it on at 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning. By around 1 or 2 o'clock, I checked see if anybody was listening to it. We had 1,000 hits on it. And by that evening, we had 45,000 hits. And by the next morning, we had almost 100,000 hits on it. And that day, I got a call from Fox News, from their booker, and she said, "Hi, Mr. Garrett." She said, "This is Siobhan from Fox News. We've been playing your song up here, and we'd like to get you to come up." So I went up, and I was on with one of those pretty girls that hosts Fox News, and they played the song, and they had me on for a few minutes commenting on it.
That's amazing. Well, let's give it a listen. I know drivers want to hear it.
Hey! Well, I'm lift my hand on my heart, because Old Glory represents the nation I love. And I'm gonna honor all those people who died as our symbol of freedom waves gloriously above. We're so lucky to live in the land of the free. Hey, won't you stand up alongside of me, 'cause I'm gonna stand for the country I love. Yeah, I'm gonna stand for America, our great land. I'm gonna stand for all we've been through. I'm gonna stand for the red, white, and blue. Our star-spangled banner gives me chills inside, fills my heart with our nation's pride. The stripes and the stars on a background of blue. When I see our flag, I know what to do. We're so lucky to live in the land of the free. Hey, won't you stand up alongside of me? I'm gonna stand for the country I love. Yeah, I'm gonna stand for America, our great land. I'm gonna stand for all we've been through. I'm gonna stand for the red, white, and blue. For the red, white, and blue. For the red, white, and blue.
That's a great song. People can find this online, right, Pat?
All this stuff can be seen on my website, which is patgarrett.com. 2 R's and 2 T's in Garrett, patgarrett.com. Anyhow, we have things on the site that they can press on and see what we were doing and what was happening. Also, there's one on there with me with Taylor Swift when she started out singing. When she was like 11 years old, we used to have a bar here called the Pat Garrett Roadhouse along Route 78 between Harrisburg and Allentown. And we started karaoke contests. And we had a contest where if the winner of the 16-week contest would get to go and play on our amphitheater stage, which is right across the street from my sheepskin shop. And so we put a little bitty ad in the Reading Eagle newspaper. And so 20 people showed up at our little concern here, the bar, the Roadhouse. Mm-hmm. And I got to know them, and it was Taylor and her family.
Oh, wow.
And, so
how old did you say she was then?
She was 11 years old.
Oh, my goodness.
Around 11. Anyhow, she got up and sang, and she was very poised from the beginning and very nice. And but she didn't win. So they kept coming back every week. We used to have it on a Thursday night because Thursday night was an off night, and we found out that people really liked karaoke. And when we announced this contest where they could open a big show at the amphitheater, the Pat Garrett Amphitheater, that is, and so folks came in droves. Our parking lot was jam full on the Thursday night. And so eventually Taylor won one of the weekly contests, and at the end, her and another girl tied for the championship, and she got better as she kept coming, you know. Mm-hmm. And so they got to open for the Charlie Daniels show over at the amphitheater.
Oh, how cool is that? When you first heard her sing, did you know that she was going to go places?
Well, when I first saw her, I thought she was very poised, and she dressed nice and everything. She wasn't the world's greatest singer to start out with, and I think she'd admit that too. But over the years, she got to be quite the singer and quite the songwriter, and she's passed me, left me in the dust.
She's a great marketer too. It's really kind of interesting how she's been able to morph herself.
Yeah. Her dad had a lot to do with that. He came in our sheepskin shop here one day. He used to call me like every other day and pick my brain about Nashville. And he came in the shop one day and he said, what am I going to do with this kid? He said, she really wants to do this. And I said, well, in Hershey they make bars, and in Detroit they make cars, and in Nashville they make stars. Move to Nashville. Oh, he kind of nodded his head, And so about, I'd say about 3 months later, he came back up to the sheepskin shop again, and he said, well, we took your advice. We're going to go. I said, where are you going? Well, he said, to Nashville. Oh, I said, great, Now, I figured, I lived in Nashville for a while, and people would come to town with their guitar and spend a week there and try to become a star, So it's pretty hard to do in a week, So anyhow, I said, how long are you going for? He said, how long? The rest of our lives. I said, what? I figured they were going to go for a month or two.
Sure.
So they moved to Nashville, and the rest is history.
That's some serious commitment from her family. That's terrific. And that was some great advice on your part, too.
Well, I helped a little bit along the way, But anyhow, her dad worked for Merrill Lynch, so he was well heeled. And I know he put a lot of money up with the record company to get her started,
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it takes, real commitment, and you
Sure.
got to put your money where your mouth is. Of course,
Yep.
if you put your money at the wrong place, that's no good either, because there's a lot of sharks in Nashville that'll take your money.
Oh, I
and,
bet.
just promote you instead of the radio stations.
Sure, absolutely. We have to go to break here, Pat, but we'll be back with more on the Truckers Network radio show. We're interviewing Pat Garrett, a country singer-songwriter who's really popular with drivers. Stay tuned right here on tncradio.live. Great leaders challenge their people not to stop at the first right answer. Tighten the Lug Nuts is the book that will help you move past that first right answer to be more effective, more productive, and more successful. This book serves as a blueprint that can be easily applied by leaders, entrepreneurs, truckers, owner-operators, all of us in our everyday lives. This is one of the best leadership books you can read to help you accelerate towards your personal and professional goals. Plus, a portion of the proceeds will be donated to truckerschristmasgroup.org. Visit TightenTheLugNuts.com to order your copy today. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. I'm your host, Shelley Johnson. I'm talking with internationally acclaimed country singer-songwriter Pat Garrett. So, how long did it take for you to make a name for yourself? Did you run into any roadblocks, or did people say, hey, you got what it takes, let's go?
Well, I never really made the super big time. I've had records that went number one in a lot of stations around the country. But you have to get a number one, you have to have all the stations practically, and there's,
Right.
I don't know, like 4,500 country radio stations out there. And to get them all at one time, it's pretty hard to do.
Sure.
And I was on my own Gold Dust record label at the time, and we didn't have a team of 10 promoters around the country. We just had a couple, me and my buddy in the office, calling radio, and but we did make some headway and got on the charts. And like I said, the song "Sexy Old Lady" was my first release, and that went number one in Fort Worth and Oklahoma City and in Detroit, WCXI in Detroit.
Okay.
So that felt pretty good, and the rest of the country was playing it too, some of the stations, but we didn't have enough people to go after them with a vengeance, and that's what it takes.
Sure. Oh, my goodness, the competition's fierce. But you definitely have made a name for yourself, and you've shared the stage with some phenomenal talent.
Absolutely. We're lucky enough to have dates with Johnny Cash and George Jones, and one of my favorites, Willie Nelson, and probably one of my top three favorites, Merle Haggard, and of course Loretta Lynn and Tanya Tucker and Patty Loveless and Billy Ray Cyrus, and the list goes on and on. And it was my honor to share the stage with them.
Oh, I bet. I bet the first time you had that opportunity, it had to have been surreal.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And it's a funny thing that I wrote a song when this was going on with our ex-president, called the Monica Lewinsky polka.
Oh,
and that was for the Willie Nelson show. And Willie, when I got on stage, Willie said, "Pat, you might have to sing that song the rest of your life." And so I've been singing it on our shows, and it's a pretty funny song. But that was before we had the internet. You know, it was in the 80s, and the internet wasn't prevalent yet. But we did it at the amphitheater in front of a crowd of about 3,000 people. And after I was done with our show that day, I got off the stage, and there must have been 1,500 people in line. And I said to the souvenir girl, "Oh, what are all these folks lined up for?" "They want a copy of that new song, the Monica Lewinsky polka." So I got up on the picnic table. I said, "Folks, I'm very sorry to tell you this, but I don't have that song recorded. I just wrote it yesterday, but I'll have it next week. So if you come back next week for the show, then you can get a copy of it." So people drove. We're in Pennsylvania, between Allentown and Harrisburg, along the Blue Mountains. And the next week, people drove from every state around us, from Ohio, from Virginia, from West Virginia, New Jersey, New York, just to get a copy of that song. If we'd have had the internet at that time, that would have exploded, kind of like I'm Gonna Stand did.
Oh, well, yeah, would have. Absolutely. You would have been worldwide.
Yes, absolutely.
Sure. Now, you've been quite a supporter of the trucking industry and drivers, too. How did all of that evolve?
Well, you know, being on exit 19 here, we get a lot of truckers coming off, and they come in and get sheepskin seat covers for their rigs. And I just wrote this song called Old Timers, you know, from a trucker's point of view. It says, rolling down this long, lonesome highway, jamming gears and listening to the radio, but it don't sound like it used to. Where did all the old timers go? And it's a great song. We've got a great video on it, too. And that song went #1 in Europe, and it got on the charts here in the United States, too. So we're pretty happy with that one.
That's terrific. We're going to be playing that next because I know it's one of the big favorites among our driver listeners. Let's listen.
Rolling down this long, lonesome highway, listening to the country radio. But it don't sound the same as it used to. Where did all the old timers go? Oh, Waylon Jones and Haggard, Loretta and Patsy Cline. If they ever played old Johnny Cash, I'd go out of my mind. Rolling down this long, lonesome highway, jamming gears and listening to the radio. But it don't sound the same as it used to. Oh, where did all the old timers go? Climb. If they played the Grand Ole Opry stars, I'd go out of my mind. Where did all the old timers go? Yeah, my old friends on the radio, just a singing songs we all love and know. Where did all the Yeah, my old friends on the radio, just a singing songs we all love and know. Tell me now, where did all the old timers go? Oh, where did all the old timers go?
So what inspired that song?
Well, just we actually have a country radio station. It's an AM station, 1510 in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, AM 1510 WWSM.
Oh, okay.
And so we just we play all the old timers, the vintage country music. But it's hard to hear, guys like George Jones and Waylon and Willie and the boys on the big FM stations these days. They play this new country rock and roll stuff, and they don't get much George Jones in there. So that was the inspiration from it. And then I wrote it from a trucker's viewpoint, since
That's
a lot of truckers come in here.
That's great. Did you have any particular musical idols that kind of influenced your music growing up? I assume that you started music early. Am I correct?
Yeah, like I said, in high school, of course, Elvis was an inspiration because nobody liked Elvis, And then Friday nights, I used to watch Ricky Nelson on TV, and then after he was on, I'd get a copy of his new song and learned all of his songs too. So I would say they were the biggest ones. But then when it got to country music, Patsy Cline had some fabulous songs, Crazy and Walking After Midnight, like that. And then also Ray Charles made a country album, and he had some great songs on there, so I started learning those songs too. And when you go out and play, people like songs that are familiar a lot of times, and so we perform those and get a good reception for them.
This is really interesting. We have to go to break here, Pat. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. Stay tuned for more with Pat Garrett coming up. Kathy DeCaro is nothing short of amazing. She not only drives the world's biggest truck as a heavy equipment operator in northern Alberta, Canada. She's an international motivational speaker and the author of Dream Big, an autobiography about overcoming a lifetime of trauma and abuse that led to dreams of success. Kathy inspires people the world over to change their lives and improve their self-worth. Her book will change your life. She's passionate about personal growth and believes anyone can change their circumstances and overcome their obstacles if they believe in themselves. Her life will amaze you and seriously inspire you. Be sure to order a copy of her book, Dream Big, on Amazon.com. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. I'm your host, Shelley Johnson. I'm talking with country singer-songwriter Pat Garrett. So, Pat, I was curious. Did you have a day job while you were pursuing your musical career? I mean, obviously, it's so demanding. I bet your schedule was just frenzied when you were trying to perform and put food on the table at the same time.
Well, exactly. I've always been working 7 days a week with, I have this gas station and sheepskin shop together, so I always did that. And after we closed at 6 o'clock, I'd get in the car and go play a gig someplace, at least on the weekends.
That would be demanding. Did you have any time to sleep?
Oh, yeah. It's not as bad as it sounds. That one album that you mentioned with the Pat Farrell and the Believers, when we had a rock and roll band, we used to play a lot at that time. And so we were always running around the countryside here, and mostly in Pennsylvania.
That would still be pretty darn busy. I'm looking at a song here. This title is interesting. Fire One Up for Willie. It's a tribute for Willie Nelson. It's rather comical. What inspired this rather tongue-in-cheek melody that everyone can smile about?
Well, Willie's noted for his use of ganja. And so anyhow, I was on the bus with him one time, and we were chatting away, and you could smell it in the air there. So, Willie's getting up there, so I wanted to give him a little tribute song before he takes off on us. And that was it. And like I said, it's an amusing song, and we enjoy doing it because people seem to really like it.
Sure. What was Willie's reaction to it?
Well, I haven't played with him since I wrote the song, and Willie changes the number on his bus about every 2 weeks, because if he didn't, the whole world would be calling him. I used to have his personal number, but I don't anymore, so we have to go through his sister. We sent it to her, but we haven't heard back from her.
Oh, okay. Well, it's a great song, and we're going to be featuring that too. So I just kind of wondered, what was the inspiration behind that?
Well, like I said, when they're on the bus, you can smell the ganja, and, pot, as they call it. And so, I figured fire one up for Willie, so before he goes, and roll him up and smoke him when he dies,
There you go.
Well, most people love my old friend Willie Nelson. His songs are always on my mind. Some folks think he's crazy for living that nightlife, but the next day he'll be on the road again. All the girls he's loved before still love him, even as their blue eyes are crying in the rain. 7 Spanish angels fly above him, 'cause he's flying too close to the ground again. So let's all fire one up for our friend Willie. Sail on down that Whiskey River today, and stay all night, stay a little longer. Ain't it funny how time slips away? His mama let him grow up to be a cowboy. He rode with Pancho and Lefty, I was told. One day I sang that song on stage there with him. Wish I could go along out on the road. Now Willie's songs will live forever, and his memory will linger on and on. So I want to honor one of Willie's last requests. So let's roll him up and smoke him when he's gone. Oh, let's all fire one up for our friend Willie. Sail on down that Whiskey River today, and stay all night, stay a little longer. Ain't it funny how time slips away? Ain't it funny how time slips away?
There's another song that we're going to be featuring, Peace in the Valley. That's a gospel song. I thought maybe you could kind of talk a little bit about that, what inspired that song.
Well, that's not an original song. Some gospel great wrote that song, but
okay.
That's one of the songs that I learned off Elvis's gospel album, and we do that one out sometimes. And so the inspiration was Elvis singing it, I guess.
His talent was tremendous because, he really was so versatile. And he really kind of took America by storm on what, the Ed Sullivan Show? I think that's where he got
Right.
his first major break. And of course, what was it I'd heard? They had to zoom in on him because they didn't want to show his gyrations on TV.
Yeah, they want to show swivel hips.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I remember seeing that on TV. Yeah, we were all gathered around the TV when he was on that night.
Oh, the girls would just swoon with him.
You could hardly. It was like when the Beatles were on. They went crazy then too. You could hardly hear the song.
Yeah, I think that was the first time that teenage girls got that crazy when it came to musicians.
Well,
and
my
singers.
mom told me they were like that over Frank Sinatra too. So
Okay.
I guess girls will be girls, and that's a good thing.
Oh, sure. Teenage girls. I mean, yeah, it's just part of the rite of passage. You got to have somebody that's your idol.
I worked in a band called Shorty Long in the Santa Fe Rangers. It was a real country band. It was kind of at the end of my rock and roll days. And Shorty had played on a couple of Elvis's songs. I think it was Hound Dog and All Shook Up when they were recording in Camden, New Jersey. And so I got to play with Shorty for a couple of years, and we traveled all around. We played a lot with him. We played like 5, 6, 7 days a week with Shorty, and he was inspiration too. I went to Nashville for the first time with Shorty and met some people down there and got a few connections. So after that, I went by myself, and we put some records out, and some of them got on the Billboard charts, and we're very happy about that.
That's terrific. Let's listen to the song Peace in the Valley.
Oh, well, I'm tired and so weary, but I must go along till the Lord comes and calls me away, where the morning's so bright and the Lamb is the light, and the night is as black as the sea. Oh yeah, there will be peace in the valley for me someday. There will be peace in the valley, Lordy, I pray. Oh yeah, there'll be no sadness, no sorrow, no trouble I see. There will be peace in the valley for me. Well, the old bear will be gentle, and the wolves will be tame, and the lion shall lay down by the lamb, and the beast from the wild shall be laid by a child, and I'll be changed from this creature, oh, that I am. Oh yeah, there will be peace in the valley for me someday. There will be peace in the valley, oh Lordy, I pray. There'll be no sadness, no sorrow, no trouble I see. There will be peace in the valley for me. Oh, yeah.
Great tune. We have to go for one more break here, Pat, to pay the bills. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show here on tncradio.live. Stay tuned for more coming up. Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. I'm your host, Shelley Johnson. I've been talking with country singer-songwriter Pat Garrett. We've been having a great conversation. So I had another question for you, Pat. Were there times that were particularly memorable or especially amusing in your career?
Well, like I said, of course, the first time in the high school assembly was a memorable time for me. But
Sure.
then when we did my song, I'm Gonna Stand, I told the folks this is a song I wrote in reference to football players taking the knee, which I don't think was very patriotic. I mean, they had to do what they had to do. But anyhow, when I see the flag, I'll put my hand over my heart and take my hat off, you know. And I think most Americans feel that way. And
Right.
the first time we performed that song was at the Bloomsburg Fair in Pennsylvania. It's one of the biggest fairs in the United States. And we had a great crowd that night. And I said, folks, I want to do a new song. Again, I just wrote this song the day before we played the fair.
Wow.
And we got, when I was finished, in fact, I had to use my acoustic guitar because the band didn't know it. And my wife, Susie Dalton, plays bass in my band, so she held the words for me. And the lights are shining in my eyes, you know, and the people are sitting out there in a covered pavilion, a big pavilion of about 1,000 people or so. And so I said, folks, this is a brand new song, and Susie will hold the words for me. I'll go ahead and do it for you. So I played the song, and then with my acoustic guitar, when I looked out after the song was over, again, the people were standing up, and they cheered for 5 minutes. I couldn't believe it, you know. So that's when I made a copy for Facebook, and it took off on there, too. So that was a real memorable time.
When you shared the stage with a lot of the big names, were there some interesting stories that you could tell about that? I mean, that's got to be, like I said, surreal to share the stage with some of the big names.
Well, it's really cool, you know, when you on the same stage with Loretta Lynn or George Jones. I got to sing with George, and I got to sing with Willie.
Mm-hmm. I've heard all of them are very, very nice people.
Most of them are.
Right. Yeah.
There's a few that came here a little on the stone side, and they weren't too sweet to deal with. I won't mention any names, but
Right.
Anyhow, so they were not. There's only one or two of them, but like you said, for the most part, they are very nice people. I mean, all the classic guys like Merle and George and Johnny and Willie and Loretta and so on, are very, very charming to play with and very nice to us. Invited us on the bus for a beer, and we just had a fine old time with them.
Did any of them give you some career advice or kind of take you under their wing and say, hey, this is how you do it?
Well, not really. I mean, if you're going to do this stuff, you got to hoe your own garden, I guess, because everybody's out there so busy with their own careers that they don't have time to fool around with people, you know.
Yeah, it's competitive. It takes a while probably to find your way and find your style, too.
Well, you know, it's like they say, it's hard to reach the big time. If you're big star bound, let me tell you, it's a long, hard ride. That's a line from a David Allan Coe song.
Mm-hmm. Takes a lot of determination.
Yeah, it's quite the effort, you know, to a guy. I mean, all the guys that are playing in local bands and stuff like that, they got to book the job, then they got to load the vehicles up or a truck up, and they got to drive to the job, and then they play the job, and then they unload all that junk and amplifiers and guitars and drums and stuff and stick it back in the band, and they go home. I had a buddy that said, that guy's a bum. All he does is play music. I said, well, let me tell you about that guy. I said, that guy, yeah, he sleeps till noontime, but he gets up, and then at 4 or 5 o'clock they load the truck, and then if they're playing close, maybe they're only an hour away from the gig, so they drive to the gig. Now they got 4 or 5 hours in already, and they play the gig. That's another 3 or 4 hours, and then they load the truck up again, and then they drive home. So it could be anywhere from a 8 to 10, 11-hour gig till you do all of that, and that takes dedication and Herculean effort.
Oh, yes. Dedication, intestinal fortitude, determination, and you have to be able to deal with the criticism, because I'm sure you have naysayers, and you just have to keep plowing ahead saying, you know what, I am good, and I'm not going to listen to you.
Well, I guess there's some people that don't like everybody, but as long as somebody slaps you on the back once in a while and says, I really like that song, that keeps you going, you know.
Sure. Would you say that the music scene is more competitive today than it used to be?
Well, it seems like there's so many new people coming up that I have never heard of, you know, and they end up with a top 10 record, and then you don't hear from them again, you know. But, yeah, I guess it is, because with the internet now, you can deliver the songs on an MP3 to a radio station. You don't have to carry it around like Loretta Lynn did, and her husband driving from radio station to radio station. But all I have to do is push a button, and it goes to the station. Then the trick is to get them to listen to it, you know. Oh,
sure. That was always the challenge, and get them to play it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's like anything else. They say payola is dead. I said payola is alive and well. It's just hidden somewhere or another.
They just call it something different. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a friend who was at a Billboard radio station. In fact, when I was in Nashville, I recommended to Billboard about this gal in Hershey, PA. She was on Z107. Her name was Dandelion. And I said she ought to submit the tape to Billboard and get them to hear her. And by hook she did, and she got to be one of the Billboard charting stations. She was on the Billboard charts for, I don't know, maybe 25 years or something before she passed. And she was a great gal. She said my song Sexy Old Lady was one of her top 3 requested songs over the years. So that made me feel good, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You have a business, and I wanted you to be able to plug that too, so people know that
okay.
You do more than just music. What's the name of your company, and what does it do?
Well, the parent company is called Sycophus Sheepskins, and we have an outlet store between Harrisburg and Allentown, Pennsylvania, right at the top of exit 19. And we have a big truck parking lot across the street. So we get truckers in every day, and we make sheepskin coats, and we make sheepskin hats, and we make sheepskin seat covers and slippers. And I don't know if you're familiar with the good things about sheepskin, but if you use it for a car seat, the protects the seat underneath this sheepskin cover, and then you can drive in the summertime and you stay cool because your skin breathes with the sheepskin. And in the wintertime, the seats are warm immediately. So you can have a convertible and leave it out in the hot sun and still sit right down on that sheepskin. Whereas if it's a leather seat, you can't hardly sit down for a while, you know. And then in the wintertime, when you get in the car, you can sit right down on them too, and they reflect your body heat, and it warms you right up and keeps you warm while you're going down the road. That's why a lot of truckers use them.
Yeah, I was going to say, you have a lot of drivers who come in. And now, do you do custom sheepskins for
We
them?
can custom make them. We measure the seats. In fact, before your call here today, there was a man in with 3 vehicles, and I personally measured them, and because my other guy, Randy, wasn't here, but I measured them, and then we cut them out to fit the seats and sew them back together. And that way it's a nice fit and looks nice in the vehicle. And, we're about half the price of other people that make them. Like for Mercedes and stuff, they charge $4.99 a seat. Mm-hmm. And we're like $249 to $299 a seat. So that's why people stop here, I guess, because we are quite reasonable.
So where is your store where people can come and talk to you and see your products? And
yeah, like I said, it's at the top of exit 19 between Harrisburg and Allentown. We're open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. So we used to stay open till wee hours of the night, but it just got to be too much. So we were getting 10 hours a day, and we figured that's enough these days.
That's quite a long day. Absolutely.
Yep.
So are you going to be doing any concerts this year? Or?
Yeah, we're playing a lot of private gigs this summer, and public places that we're going to be appearing. There's a gorgeous park here in Pennsylvania called Knoebels, with a K, Knoebels Amusement Resort. And we're playing there, August 19, 20, and 21. And we've been playing up there for a number of years. And also in September, we're playing back up at the Bloomsburg Fair on September 29th, that is. Mm-hmm. There's a couple more in there that I can't remember off the top of my head, but I like to give those guys a plug because they've been using this for so long.
Pat, before we wrap up with this interview, I wanted to feature one more song of yours that's really cool. I mentioned it in the introduction to this interview. It's called Wild Hog. The Harley riders out there are going to love it. Our professional drivers are going to love it. It's a full-out rollicking stomp that became a top 20 download and received 250,000 hits on YouTube. Let's listen. You'll see why. Terrific song by Pat Garrett, Wild Hog.
Be a wild hog, not some sleepy old dog, running wild and free. Come on and ride with me. I wanna be a wild hog, feel that wind in your face. We can go any place, feel the power, hear the thunder. It's a spell that I'm under. Wanna be a wild hog. Well, get out the leather by the sharp crawl. I don't care where we go, I just gotta get gone. When I crank on that throttle, it turns me on. It sets my soul free. Come on and ride along. I wanna be a wild hog, not some sleepy old dog. Rolling wild and free, come on and ride with me. I wanna be a wild hog. Well, get out the leather by the sharp crawl. Where we go, I just gotta get gone. When I crank on that throttle, it turns me on. It sets my soul free. Come on and ride along. I wanna be a wild hog, not some sleepy old dog. Running wild and free. Come on and ride with me. I wanna be a wild hog. Feel that wind in your face.
can our drivers and our listeners find you? You've got a website for your business as well as your music.
Yes, I do. And the Sheepskin website, let me get my tongue around my teeth here. I couldn't see what I was saying. The Sheepskin website is sheepcoat.com, SHEEPCOAT.com. And, of course, my Pat Garrett site is patgarrett.com. So it's easy to find.
And Garrett spelled Garrett.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. This has been so much fun talking to you, Pat.
Well, it's good to talk to you, too.
And I know that our driver listeners are going to thoroughly enjoy all the music and some of the stories you've been able to tell. This is very cool.
Well, it's my pleasure, Shelley, and thank you for having me on with you.
You're very welcome. You've been listening to the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson. Stay tuned for more right here on TNCRadio.live. Thank you for listening to another great interview on TNCRadio.live. All of the material you hear on TNCRadio.live on our website, our broadcasts, or our podcasts are copyrighted. There can be no distribution without the express consent of TNCRadio.live and its partners. For inquiries, write us at info@tncradio.live.